Got my homophobic dorm mate expelled from uni by getting myself beat up by him. Quick disclaimer, first time posting, English isn't first language, all that good stuff. I also won't put in too many details for the sake of privacy. This happened when I, 20M at the time, lived in a dorm near my university. It left a lot to be desired, but it did the job, and I rarely left my relatively tidy room. I shared a room with 3 other people who were kinda weird and a bit foul-mouthed but otherwise pretty alright. There was this one guy though, which I'll refer to as TC short for two-faced cunt, who kept making Schrodinger's jokes. The kinds where he said something extremely offensive and decided whether it was a joke or not based on other people's reaction to it. He was also extremely conservative. The women should be treated as cattle kind. This usually wasn't too much of a problem because I'm not the type of guy to get into many arguments, so I just resorted to having the minimum amount of interaction with him. That was until one day near the afternoon, where most of the other people in the building had left for their classes. I and TC didn't have class that hour, so he lied down on his bed scrolling through Instagram while I sat at my laptop doing my own thing. Then for some FING reason, and I have no idea what worm shoved its way into his anus at that time, TC decided that it would be fun to irritate me. He knew that I'm asexual and an LGBTQ rights supporter, so he started loading up videos that had blatantly homophobic messages. Stuff from preachers, stuff from extremist groups, strawman arguments, all the way to BLM stuff for some reason. I can't remember the details because I frankly don't care. And he raised the volume to the point that it was impossible to ignore, and let them loop over and over again 3 to 5 times before scrolling. He never did this before. All the while he never looked at me, but his intentions were obvious. I kept ignoring him until it legitimately got on my nerves. Then I asked TC to stop, to which he said that he was just browsing through stuff, and it had nothing to do with me, obviously lying. After a few more minutes of him doing this, I turned around to look at him and said, "Look, all we want to do is live normally. It's not an agenda. We're not trying to take rights away from you. Just stop this bullshit." TC at that moment latched onto the fact that I said we, and started wheezing like that "you serious?" meme. That mocking, obnoxious type. "So you're telling me you're gay?" he said in the middle of his cackling. At that point I had enough. I threw my chair at him and said something along the lines of, "God forbid how your mom raised you 'cause she clearly lives in a barn." I'm heavily paraphrasing here. It doesn't translate well from my native language. TC got absolutely livid. He launched at me and threw me to the ground. He was physically bigger than me, and wrapped one hand around my neck trying to choke me, and punching me with the other. This entire situation I'm about to describe took around 15 to 20 seconds at most, mind you. Now in this situation, basic survival instincts would have me try to retaliate, or throw back a few slaps that I know would fail because I'm a weak little bitch. And I did just that for a few seconds. But for some reason I decided that it was a better idea to let him do it. None of his blows hurt that much somehow, probably because of the adrenaline, and I kept giggling and making the most punchable face I could make. At this point another guy from the room next to us, they were separated by just a wall. There was a door in the middle that would let you get into either room. Heard the entire thing and came in, forcefully separating him from me. I lied down for another few seconds before I stood up and left to wash my face. I had claw marks on my neck, throat and wrist, skid marks on my elbow, and part of my face and forehead got swollen after a few minutes. It only really started to hurt after it was all over. After I had a brief talk with few concerned boys from the other rooms and assuring them that I was fine. I'm guessing the whole thing was much louder than I remember it being. I walked to the little yard, balcony outside the indoor section of the dorm and explained the situation as politely as I could to the dorm manager sitting down smoking nearby. He looked pretty shocked, but it looked like he had experience with this sort of thing before. He got TC brought to him and gave a stern talking to in front of my face, but I was having none of that shit. I made up the story that I threw the chair in self-defense, which he tried to deny, but with all the evidence on my face his points were automatically invalid. I told TC to pay me a compensation or I would press charges. He insisted that he didn't have the money and practically begged me to let it go. But I just said that I didn't care and to figure it out. I then called my family back home, telling them the whole story. Then me and my family separately got in touch with the university and explained the situation to them. One that I proved in person when I came in for my class that day, and talked with the uni administrator. They didn't take it lightly either. Next thing I knew, I had around $120 more in my account from TC's family. I know it's not much. I'm adjusting for exchange rates. Got TC kicked out of the university, making him unlikely to be able to sign up to anywhere remotely respectable, and made my dorm room a slightly more tolerable place. And all it took was a few flesh wounds. Moral of the story: IDK be a little I guess.